So by the way, Grace,
Yeah.
did anyone describe to you the format of these sessions?
Sorry.
So by the way, I think Glenn has offered to be moderator. Would anyone want to be host / moderator?
I'm fine with that. I'm trying to record it as well, so hopefully that will go well. But yeah, just to describe it briefly, is this your first Zoom call, Grace?
No, I've done lots of Zoom calls before. I'm just on a smartphone, so I'm just trying to get it set up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because we've been having about 4 meetings every week. So different days, we've had different agendas, you could say, or different themes, even though generally it's pretty open. And on the Saturdays, we've had something called barn racing, which is focused on what we want to create. And then we came into the project that one of the things we want to do is to really go into a deep exploration of what each person in the room has to bring, what is their story, what is their vision, in the way they want to tell their story. So we had 4 sessions with Tammy, and I believe this is the 4th session with Sam. And basically, we just keep going as long as that person feels they have something that they want to share or explore deeper. So it's no rush, you can say. But today, the plan is that we listen to Sam and focus on him, and then of course we can ask all kinds of questions as appropriate. And but basically, it's Sam who holds the floor and can take it in the direction that he wants to take it. So that's basically it. So you could say it's a deep dive that we're doing on these Saturday calls.
That's really nice, thank you.
Let me add a couple of notes. That is that typically on GCC calls, it's somewhat useful for people to take a couple of minutes to first check in and sort of get a sense of where everybody's coming from, how they've been doing recently. And then there's kind of a quick checkout just before we sign off as well. And I think the only other thing that we try to do is to make sure that, I guess the host or the moderator, this is a relatively new format. We've only been doing this for about 7 weeks, this deep dive format. And my own personal view on it is that it's an extreme privilege. It could potentially even be a once in a lifetime privilege because it's rare to have such generous attention from such caring individuals for such an intense and long duration. So I will definitely try not to abuse that privilege, but I do feel that there's a bunch of points that I want to get to. So it's kind of this fine balancing point between self-indulgent time-taking versus really trying to get the point across. And, oh, there's Heiner. Okay, thanks. Okay. So anyway, would people like to check in? Do a little round of check-ins.
I can go first. It's been a wild and windy day up in the mountains. I'm living in the far north of Sweden, so it can be a bit crazy up here. So I've been out a lot in the woods today, and I've been working a bit on my book. And then I had my partner in the charity. She turned up and made me dinner. So we had a few hours together. That was great. She made me dinner. We ate, we chatted. She washed up, then she went home. So that was pretty good. And then I had a guy with his young son come and look at my cabin, and they seemed quite interested in buying it. So that was also good. I can only stay for an hour, I'm afraid, Sam, today. I'm up early off on a hiking trip tomorrow morning, so I need to get to bed relatively early so I can get up early. But I'll stay for an hour and enjoy that hour with you all.
I'll go next.
From Berlin. I think we should not waste time because I only have close to 1 hour. So, Sam, you're in the ring.
Well, we did offer everyone a chance to check in, and I think Grace was about to do so.
Yeah, I'm quite happy to just crack on. I've had a really busy few days. I'm working at a festival at the moment, so I need to also get up early tomorrow. So I'm quite happy for you to go, Sam, if everyone else is.
Josh? Glenn?
Yeah, it's the same here. Same here. Just doing good. Glad to be here. Ready to go into Sam's story.
Okay, given that I've heard two people say that they're limited to an hour today, let me at least focus on one thing that really represents one of the potential endpoints or the end game story that I really am trying to work on or move towards in this participation with GCC, okay? I've mentioned it in the past, and so let me just connect a couple of dots before we kind of get there, okay? Is that, who else we got? Oh, that's double Heiner. Okay, good. Heiner's doppelganger. Okay, so let me at least recap very, very briefly the story. I've touched on this point of collaborology being the study and principles and practices and tools for how we successfully scale collaboration. And scaling to me means scaling to planetary impact. The difference being, I'm really curious in those cases where we come together as autonomous entities, where neither of us works for the other, neither of us actually compensates the other, neither of us coerces the other into doing something, because that's the old model. We can pay somebody, we can actually whip them, we can actually, blackmail them. That's the old model. But in the new model is how do we get well-intentioned, autonomous people aligned in such a way that we move together in some direction, okay? And it starts, of course, with yourself. There's actually a collaborology aspect that I think is involved in how do you align with yourself and work together with yourself, because not everybody does that well. Some people actually, fight themselves quite a bit. And then, of course, the next step is how do two independent people do it, and then three, and then, scaling up from there. So I mentioned last week that there was an offering I made called the CCC, the Communication and Commitment to Collaborate. I'm not going to spend much time on that today because the main point I want to go to today is this thing that is this dream of mine called the COI, the Community of Impact, which I think this GCC community represents as a potential. So it's a very simple, in the end, it's a very simple concept. And it's simple because I wanted intentionally to make it extremely simple to understand, extremely simple to either decide to do or not do, and extremely simple to just practice, and then just carry forth with it as part of your life. So I have a little Google Doc that lives at communityofimpact.info, if any of you want to go there. I'm not going to throw it up here because I think for a number of reasons, we've had people say, hey, it's good to sort of see people's facial reactions as we discuss. But if you follow along and you have a different window open, you can go to communityofimpact.info. And I left all the commentary there from previous people who have also visited. You'll notice some of the names there are from previous GCC people as well. Belina Rafi is there. Dino Karabeg, one of my friends from Oslo, is there. A number of other people have left messages. I think Anna's been there. Tammy's been there. So I just wanted to go over what this is and then sort of bring a context for it and why I'm trying to do what I'm trying to do. Now, the point to that document is I'm trying to put on a single piece of paper in very large font in a small number of bullets, very small words, small number of words, small number of bullets, a simple structure that potentially could make a large impact. So there's 4 points to it. The first point is, and this is very, very explicit, decide to do good. I know most people think of themselves as good people, and most people think of their friends as good people, but I'm not sure if many people actually explicitly tell themselves and write down, I am going to do good, and this is what good looks like. I'm either going to create a company, or I'm going to help a school, or I'm going to raise children, or I'm going to write a book, or I'm going to do something. I don't know if people actually are that explicit. I'm asking people to be pretty explicit about what good means. The reason for the explicitness is only by getting it shareable can other people give you feedback on it, and then you can tweak it. Okay, so that's the first step. If you make it explicit, and by good, this is whatever you think good is. I'm not here, nobody's here to tell you what good is, but we want you to align with some notion of good, whether it's following the precepts of a particular religion, to whether or not you're going to be compassionate to people, to whether or not you're actually going to start a nonprofit. What does good mean to you? And no one is here to prescribe what that is. That's fundamental to this notion of autonomous people. So if you actually say, I want to do good, and you look at the rest of these bullet points and say, that looks reasonable, and you do an opt-in. In other words, you decide, hey, I'm going to try this. Then by my definition, you are now a member of the community of impact. And I would like to get to know you. Let's go over the other bullet points, okay? The second bullet point is to find 2 people. They don't have to be the same 2 people the rest of your life, but at some point, just always have 2 people. And they've got to know you, and you've got to know them. They've got to love you, and you've got to love them to such a degree that they can see through your bullshit, and they can see through your stories, and they can see through your excuses, and they can see through whatever other story you want to tell yourself or them about what you've been doing, so that they can actually help you hold yourself accountable to this doing good idea. Now, already we can lose a lot of people in this, right? So not everybody's going to write down what they want to do as good. Not everybody's going to have 2 people that actually want to take on this responsibility of holding themselves and you accountable, and to do this on a regular basis. The regular basis meaning either for a day or a week or a month or whatever other periodicity you choose. To have a discussion. This is what I wanted to do. This is what I actually did. Is this in complete alignment, or is there a gap here somewhere? And what's the nature of that gap? Was I too lazy? Did I just finally decide not to go, finish that one thing that I said I was going to do? Did something else come up? Was I distracted? Was I seduced by something else? What is that particular reason? There's no value judgment here. It's all a matter of, did you choose to do something, and given that same opportunity next time it appears, would you choose the same way or would you choose differently? So these reviews, if best held in a one-on-one-on-one in a 3-way format, optionally you can do it, asynchronously with 2 separate people. But the point here is to learn from that, to actually review what you did versus what you said you were going to do, and ask 4 basic questions, okay? These questions come out of agility practice, and they're basically, what do I keep doing because it's working? What do I want to start doing that I haven't been doing before? What do I want to stop doing because it's not producing the results that I want? And what do I not yet understand? What am I still okay with deferring till some other time in the future? That last question is probably the most important question, because otherwise you try and bite off too much in one time. So the point is, you keep doing what's working, start doing something new that you think has potential, stop doing something that's not working, and then everything else, park it. Leave it for some future time. The next time you do a retrospective, or with peers, I call them peerspectives. Okay. And really importantly, once you're in this community which I'm calling a circle of trust, ideally share it with this community. So in other words, if I say I'm going to do something and I did this and I did that and I learned that I got to do something different and I'm going to do something different next time, I want to share it with this community. So if Glenn's a member of this community, if Lucy's a member of this community, I want to put it somewhere where they can see that I'm actually practicing this accountability. Not because they want to apply value judgments to it. I don't want to apply value judgments to anyone else. The point is, they want to see that I am actually practicing what I say I'm going to do. And I can see that others are actually practicing what they say they're going to do. Here's a secondary aspect. There may be aspects of what Glenn and Lucy and Heiner and Joshua and Grace and Tammy and Harry are doing that's good, that I might want to incorporate into my notion of good. And I want to be able to learn from that also. So these peerspectives are intended to show some commitment, show some accountability, actually result in a different arc in your life. Because if I go off in one direction and say, this is what good means to me, and tomorrow or the next time I shift it slightly, because now I have a slightly refined version of what good means, now I want to go in that different direction, because I think that's closer to what I mean good is. The following week, I may shift a little bit more. So over time, with these periodic reviews, I'll get a much more explicit, much more refined notion of what good means. Now, ideally, this happens to everyone, but at a different pace. Some people are going to do this weekly. Some people are going to do this bi-weekly, monthly, semi-annually. I would say that's too long. But if you have this, and if you're sharing this, then there's a lot of good fodder here for everyone in the community to learn from and to review. And then the fourth aspect is, this is a community of people that I want to collaborate with and I want to explore collaboration with. If I know that these are people who want to do good and are holding themselves accountable for doing good, and by the way, don't get triggered if the word accountable or the word responsible means something negative to you. Okay, there's no external implication that you're going to be penalized if you're actually deviating from good. That's not the reason. Okay, the whole reason for being explicit and to share all this, in my view, is to be able to share and learn. If I am today saying I want to go out and make $1 million and that's what good means to me, it could be that after 7 or 8 or 5, however many number of iterations, I'm likely to refine that. I'm likely to refine that to something that's much more aligned towards compassion, towards people, towards society, towards thrivability, and less towards profit and less towards self-centered wealth kinds of notions. Now, it could be that other people stay along that path. That's okay too, as long as they're reviewing what good means to them, and I know they're holding themselves accountable. I'm completely okay with that. But there will be some twists and turns and changes of direction that I anticipate and I have seen happen as these discussions take place and as you share them with others. So why this, okay? Because I'm actually asking a lot of people. I understand that, okay? I mean, it's a lot for some people even just to wake up on time on a Sunday and drag themselves off to church, okay? So I'm asking people to do something that's even more of an ask than that. I'm asking people to actually reflect on what certain of these terms mean to them and what their execution means, So this is all very abstract, but I wanted to also bring it back to something concrete. When I first proposed these ideas, I was working with Dino Karabeg in Oslo, your town, Glenn, and Alexander Laszlo, who at the time was living in Northern California, but now he's living in Buenos Aires, Argentina. There was another person named David Price in London. And then on and off, there's been another fellow named Frode Hegland, also in London. So I was collaborating with these 4 people. And after a while, when I proposed these ideas, I actually said, I want to do a perspective with you guys. So similar to this kind of format, we actually had 3 separate sessions. I think we did it on 3 separate days. And all of those sessions are recorded, just like these sessions are. And those perspectives are actually posted on SoundCloud. So I will, if any of you are interested, I will post those links to those perspectives in SoundCloud. Now, I would say they're slightly deviating from what I am intending because they're very, very, very deep and very long perspectives. What I'm hoping for is that it not be that deep and not be that long. In other words, if a 2-week period is what you choose, I'm hoping that the perspective is an hour or less. Now, Joshua and other people in the software business may recognize this as a very standard Agile practice. But Agile is a set of principles that goes way beyond software, way beyond organization. But it's actually a learning protocol. It's a learning practice. And so that's what I'm proposing be actually the center practice in this thing that I'm calling the COI. There's a number of secondary benefits to it. One of the one of the best benefits I see coming out of this is that I'm looking for people to whom this resonates. And it resonates enough so that there's a curiosity about embracing and possibly practicing it for a little bit. If there are such people, and if we can actually connect together, I think that's a population, that's a community or village that I think has tremendous potential. And for me personally, I would have a lot of initial trust with these people to try and forge some alliances, to forge some teamwork, some collaboration work. And so my image I have in my mind with this 8.5 by 11 inch piece of paper in large font, small number of bullets, is that if I could print up 8 billion of these sheets of paper, forget the tree and eco effects of that, but just in my image, in my mind, if I could have 8 billion pieces of these paper and drop these 8 billion pieces of paper on the planet, and they each get picked up by one of our 8 billion people on the planet, I'm hoping in the next few months, hopefully not a very long time, to reach between 3,000 and 30,000 people. And that these people want to connect with each other. And these people want to explore collaboration opportunities with each other. And that these people might actually find this practice an interesting way to meet potential collaborators. That is my fervent wish. And the reason I have this 30,000 or 3,000 number in my mind is that there are certain numbers of people, 100,000 for example pops into mind, that together can already make a planetary impact. And I hold up that 100,000 number as a proxy because that's approximately the number of people, as of a couple of years ago, who authored pages in Wikipedia. And Wikipedia has already made a planetary impact. Almost nobody out there has not heard of Wikipedia. What I'm asking is for people to actually do a bit more than write static content. I'm actually asking for people to take a set of principles and practices and make them part of their life. So I expect fewer than 100,000 people to do this. But I think it doesn't have to be that 100,000. I think if we can actually start from like 300 or 3,000, we'll eventually get there. So I know this has been a lot of monologue to this point. Some of you may have heard some of the ideas before. I'm wanting to take a break and hear a little bit of feedback and see what people think of this initial proposal.
Yeah, this is super interesting. I think the community of impact, those 4 bullet points. The first one was to decide to be good as you consider to be good at any given moment in time. And the second, would you say that defined 2 people at least? Was the third point to this idea of peer perspectives, and the fourth, this exploration of collaboration. Yeah, because what I see with that is this community of people who learn together in small teams and have some to be accountable for and share their experiences quite openly. Maybe something that good friends sometimes do, not all the time, but I think many of us have had friends where that sort of relationship naturally develops. And when it comes to the sharing, yeah, there's also many questions, I guess, come up there as to where to share. Is it like a sort of community forum, perhaps, or are there many? Another thing that comes to my mind is that perhaps this is something that's already happening to some extent in different places under slightly different names, but that this is sort of, like you say, archetypical vision in our time of people intelligently coming together and helping one another. So yeah, those are the things that come to my mind with this.
Thanks for that summary, Glenn. And let me just respond to that one question. I know, Josh, you have your hand up. But that idea of where we share, again, I don't want to tell people where. If you're comfortable sharing on your blog, even to some restricted access, or just sharing with email, or sharing via Skype, or sharing via IRC, or sharing via Snapchat, whatever it is, I don't really care, so long as you share with those trusted people. Okay. Now, over time, that community may find that there's a benefit that is not immediately apparent to having some common place where we share. But I don't want to tell people what to do. I don't want to tell people where to share. Again, this is not about personality. This is not about a leader. This is about a set of practices that might make sense. If it doesn't make sense, don't do it. If it does make sense, try it out yourself, and refine it, make it better, and hopefully share those refinements. Okay, I would love to share those refinements. So that's my initial reaction or answer to you, Glenn, about where to share that. I hope that makes sense. Josh, you had your finger up as well.
I was just going to say, I've been, thanks for explaining how you're going into the good, but that word is quite ambiguous. So it just reminded me right now when Glenn was talking that there's this concept, if you're on the beach and you want to build a sandcastle with everyone that's suntanning on the beach, you could hand out flyers to everybody and say, we're building a sandcastle at the left side of the beach, come meet us there, let's go. And everyone will just throw the flyers away and they're, yeah, good luck, have fun with your sandcastle, like, great, I'm glad you're doing that. But if you go to the end of the beach and you build the sandcastle and a couple people come over and you start doing it and they add to it, in other words, if you're having fun doing your good, I think that's a big part of it, is the fun aspect of it. And I think it's hard. What I was going to ask you, Sam, is have you defined your good, and how did that defined process look like if you have done that? And is it something that you could share? That's my question for you.
Okay. So I'm gonna have to find it because I actually posted it on Facebook. So let me take a few seconds to find it. Give me a few seconds to respond to that one, okay? But yes, I do think that this notion of attraction by being an exemplar is a good one. Right now, I have to say that, like I said, there's a few of these peer perspectives that exist on SoundCloud. By the way, they don't have video, they have audio. So there's probably over 3 or 4 hours of audio in that peer perspective that I shared. And then the other one is I've actually been doing quite a bit of this mutual peer mentoring with Tammy in the last several months. But we've not yet shared those widely because we've not yet had a community around us that have actually been explicit about adopting these practices. I think if we did, we would probably share the dozens or so of one-on-ones that we've actually had over the last year. I'm more than willing to do that, but I would have to get Tammy's concurrence, of course, in order to share that. And then here's the other thing. I've been looking for a second. Like I say, I did this a few years ago with those 4. Right now, those are not active peering kind of relationships. We still are in touch, but Floda's in a PhD program. Dino's working on his PhD students. Alexander is looking for a new PhD situation. David is working on a contract in Australia or UK, I think somewhere. So it's interesting how these things come and go. But like I said, it's not important that these things be permanent for a lifetime. I just think it's important for one to have such relationships at any point in one's life. Okay, so once I let someone else ask a question, I'm going to look here and find that statement for you about what my good means. 1 second. Anyone else with a question? Heiner, you reappeared.
Yes, can you hear me?
Lucy has a hand up.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether I have a question, but when you, it's really good to listen to that. When you mentioned Wikipedia, that really landed for me. You know, that makes, and you can see an example of how something similar has worked in the past. I think we're still always fighting against the challenge of changing human behavior, or the challenge that every individual faces in changing their own behavior. You know, someone who wants to start flossing their teeth every day, that's a battle to build that new habit for many people. Not that that's, you know, we can still work on those things. And then what for me was really useful, or what really resonated, was what you said about using this information as a way of finding collaborators. I have found that I cross paths with a lot of people who get very excited about my work, and they're, you know, they have all the words, and then it's a big disappointment in terms of action. And so if you can actually see that someone's behavior matches what they say before you're already involved in a, you know, collaboration, or even just investing hours in meetings and planning stuff to actually figure out, is this person just talk, or are they actually willing to roll their sleeves up and start doing stuff? So that really resonates. Yeah, and I'm also interested in your definition of good. I think that sounds interesting.
Okay, I posted it, and I'm going to regurgitate it from memory. I might get 1 or 2 reads wrong. There's a little bit of echo there, I think, Connor. Oh, so let me respond to that question, but I think Heiner's had his hand up. So I want to respond and note that Josh and Lucy both have asked for my definition. I will give you that. I want to make sure Heiner has a chance to respond first. Kind of banking?
He has to fix that technical. Okay, he's got it.
Kind of banking, my friend.
Hi there.
No socks, too.
He's been having a little internet trouble.
I'm still hearing echo. Anybody else hearing echo?
I'm getting some really nasty screeching, so I've had to remove my headphones.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think it's when Heiner shows up with 2 sessions and possibly 2 microphones active.
Oh.
Okay. Grace, I'm very curious. Since you're new to this community, how are you finding this format? And I was curious about your feedback.
No, it sounds really interesting. I'm just kind of I do a lot of my work now intuitively. So in the movement weavers with Josh that we were doing, we had a lot of active meetups for a few months, and I tend to kind of hold space and just feel into what's happening, and it's really resonating with me. And I did for about 6 weeks, I did some coaching and energy work sessions with some of the movement weavers, because I was feeling that there were people within the group where I could intuitively sense potential, but that something, and this idea would kind of work if you're doing that with peers and you don't need to have like kind of a specific coach, because I think I found that even though these sessions were one-to-one and I was offering services, I was also getting a lot out of the sessions myself. So I like this idea of collaborating and growing and refining things and inspiring each other more. Yeah, thank you.
Well, thanks for that feedback. And that actually reminds me that I do know that coaching and masterminding, actually just as a FYI, how many of you are familiar with the notion of mastermind groups? Okay, a couple of you, because it was actually new to me. I didn't actually know that word until about 4 or 5 years ago. But masterminding, as I understand it, are groups of people who get together and help each other solve problems. Now, typically, they're more around professional issues, you know, but there's a particular format and a particular number of people to which this makes sense. Sorry, I hope you guys didn't hear that. That was a big bong. But anyway, to me, though, those particular models had to do with membership, had to do with membership fees, obligations. And I didn't want that to be at the core of what it is that I wanted to see happen. I wanted something that people would easily opt in to and easily opt out from, okay? Because if it doesn't make sense, if it's not helping you, don't do it. But if it does help you, don't let a membership fee, or don't let, you know, the fact that somebody else has to be the mentor, or don't have to go to a website and sign up, or don't have to, you know, swear on some terms and conditions. Basically, all the terms and conditions are on that 8.5 piece of paper that I actually just, you know, showed you guys, okay? There's nothing more than that. So that was my response, by the way, to say, this is why I wanted to make this thing as simple as possible. Right? This is the Einsteinian notion of make it as simple as possible, but no simpler. So I tried to extricate everything that didn't be crucial to this particular idea and only left in the crucial aspects. Now, I could have spent pages and pages and PowerPoints talking about each of these different points, and I've probably done that already verbally, okay? But as a written document, I wanted it to be short. I want it to be easy to understand, so that at the end of it, after about 20 seconds of looking at it, you can say, yes, I want to do this, or no, not for me. Okay? So at this point, I'm going to actually answer the question that some of you have been asking. Unless, Glenn, did you have a question? Because I saw your hands up at one point.
Well, I just wanted to share that what resonates most for me about this idea, it's the first point about being good as you consider to be good. Because yesterday we had a meeting, and before the meeting we were going to prepare a little presentation of why, who am I, what do I bring, what do I need. So I sat down and wrote for a few hours different notes, and it occurred to me that this idea also for me was very, very central in the vision that I have for something in the future. This notion that each person will define their own understanding of what good means, and always come back to that understanding again and again and again. So this seems like it's a process that goes like a spiral, where this is one of those questions you keep returning to again and again, sometimes with a few of your close coworkers, other times in larger circles, but it's like this core point that everything circles around, which has to do with one's own action, one's own being, one's own behavior, choices, what you actually do, as Lucy mentioned too. Since I also see as a part of the problem this tendency to want to do things and formulate a lot of fine ideas, but not necessarily carry forward in action. So that's also something that's directly addressed with these networks of small groups of people who just help each other give honest feedback on their personal struggle to try to be good as they see it. So I really wanted to emphasize that idea, it really hits home for me on many levels. So yeah, that's really the core thing that comes to me with this.
Thanks, Len. I really appreciate that feedback. Okay, so without further ado, I know that I wanted to answer this question, okay? I didn't actually find the website because I'm on a different browser right now. The machine that I've actually been using a lot, where I have got that bookmarked, unfortunately, it's got a boot error right now. Maybe Josh, maybe you can help me with that later on. But so here's what I put together as a statement that I've been refining over several years, and this is the current form of it, okay? I want to connect with you so that we can actually courageously channel compassion. That's what good means to me. It involves connection, it involves compassion, and it involves courage. Because we can all believe in certain values, but if we're not actually out there doing something about it, we're not taking that step that kind of requires that courage. And I could do this all by myself, but my fundamental belief is if we connect, we can resonate and possibly amplify each other. And why compassion? Well, I actually hold a lot of respect for the Dalai Lama, and I actually believe that care for each other is the hope of that better future, that better society that I want to live in. So those key elements are what good means to me at the high level. And everything I'm trying to do feeds into that. It involves connection, it involves compassion, it involves courage. There's probably another C word called community somewhere in there as well. Okay? So that to me is what good means. And over time, yeah, I've probably modified that about 4 times in the last, probably about once a year, I go back and revisit that. I do that more often than that, but it's only about once a year that it actually changes a little bit. Okay? That's its current form. I'd actually be curious about that in its current form and some feedback too, because if that resonates with you, and if these practices resonate with you, I want to call you my brother. I want to call you my sister. Okay? That's the lifelong association I want to have with you if these things make sense. So what I'm doing here in GCC is I see this having addressed global governance models as the community where we cannot escape. If this is going to be global, we have to recognize that this will encompass everyone. And that's why I made one of my commitments early on to Tammy, way back probably about 11 or 12 months ago, is until I'm kicked out, I'm not leaving. I'm not quitting. And even if I've been kicked out, I'm probably going to be difficult to remove because I'm not quitting this. Okay? This is that important. And I want to be you know, learning from it, if not at least contributing to it. So that's a connection piece. That's where I think the GCC piece actually makes a lot of sense. Another footnote I want to add to this is it's taken years for me to talk about this topic, because when I was in Silicon Valley, I was a technologist, yes. You know, I helped build lots of cool systems. I have a number of patents, a number of things I can't actually talk about because they're classified. But the things that I can talk about, there's about a handful of patents around those. So there's a tendency in Silicon Valley to view me and my contributions as technical. But as I mentioned the last several Saturdays, it was Doug Engelbart who hit me between the eyes and said, you know, we're not yet modifying human practice and human values yet to guide our technology and to improve our capabilities with that technology. Too many times we've seen technologies just take, you know, little mistakes that we make, and now we can make them 1,000,000 times faster, or 1,000,000,000 times faster, or 1,000,000,000 times larger, okay? But they're not really helping us do things in a much more refined and wise way. So that's why even with that background of technology and building products, right now I would call myself an amateur sociologist and an amateur and potentially founding collaborologist, right? Because that's a term that I'm using to contain all of these questions I'm asking about what makes collaboration work, what makes it scale, what makes it succeed more often than not. So that's why, let me bring up one more point, and that is, there's a really super smart guy on the internet, on Facebook, named Alex Lightman. Some of you know that I'm friends with him on Facebook. I don't actually know him in real life. I think he lives in LA, but he's super smart. He's on boards of companies. He's a CEO. He's an author. He's interviewed all over the place. He advises very important people. His name is Alex Lightman, Lightman. And he published this week a list of 100 disruptive technologies that we ought to be investing in the next, let's say, decade or two, okay? And I posted that to GCC this week. Some of you probably even saw that. And I started another list. I started a list of what will be the 100 potentially disruptive human practices that we might want to focus on. Some of you may have that link in front of you. I'll post it into this chat later. But Lucy, you know, really thank you for playing along with me. Lucy added a number of items. Based on that, I added a number of items. Actually, there's been some other anonymous contributions there as well. But I really think that I've never compiled such a list before, but to me, and I don't think it's even close to 100 yet. I haven't counted it recently. But I think those are things that I would love to see embraced, taught, valued, and disseminated. And I would love a lot of contribution and discussion around those ideas. Let me pause here for a second to see if I can find that URL. But Lucy, I think you had some feedback to it that I really loved. I was hoping you might be able to share some of that feedback.
Yeah, I think when I, you know, that process when you read a post or anything, of it kind of, the awareness of what that is comes in a very quick process, but maybe what you first think it is, and then you realize what it really is. So the first feeling was kind of revulsion. This list of all of this like artificial intelligence and computer versions of this and advanced technologies, and all of it to me was just like we'd given up on nature, we'd given up on people, and we were just going to use technology to try and limp our way into the future. And then I read Sam's list and I was like, yes, this is what we need. It's human values, it's like intuition, it's connection with nature, it's the ability to feel your own emotions in your body, and these are the things that we need to be talking about, because it's only when we start to change people and how we connect with ourselves, each other, and with nature that I think the mess we're in is actually going to start to shift. So I love this list. Like I think I wrote to you, Sam, I could spend hours just adding stuff to that. And I had a really interesting conversation with Doug that connects somehow, but I haven't figured out how exactly yet. Jean posted some diagrams of like global energy, you know, these networks between things. And I wrote to Doug and said, I think that we're looking in the wrong place. I think we need to be making these networks between human values, systems, capacities. And I couldn't quite articulate it, but seeing your list added another kind of brick to that. So I think I would really like to keep going on your list and seeing what else we could do with it.
I'd love to do that, Lucy. In fact, I would set up a session, invite you and whoever else wants to join, just to hammer on this list and talk about those implications and see whether or not you even agree. I'll mention some of those that I think may be potentially disagreeable to some of us, you know, but some of them are to free ourselves from addictive substances and addictive behavior, the ability to keep oneself happy, the ability to enjoy an active sense of humor, the ability to forgive, the ability to be patient, to be simple, to be able to make collectively intelligent decisions. You know, those are some representative of the items on that list. And clearly this is just the first approximation of it. But I also have fun thinking about what could be on this list. So I really want to have that session. I will probably schedule that and invite participation. I'm also aware that a couple of you said you're only available for an hour, and we're coming up upon 4 minutes to an hour. And I know I've hit one very specific topic, the COI. I appreciate you guys laying that out in front so that I could actually focus on just one idea. Hopefully I've done that a little bit of justice. I'm still not deep into that idea because I think there's still so much talk about. You know, the identity platform, for example, is entirely based on this idea. But let me at least say it's almost an hour, and shall we take an opportunity for people to do a close and see if we want to wrap up? And Carl just joined us.
Hey, Carl.
So, hello.
Hello.
A couple of minutes early.
Anyway, Carl, I wanted to say that a couple people had to leave after an hour. We've been going since 56 minutes ago.
Oh, okay. I thought it was started at 5 Eastern.
That's on Fridays. Fridays is the one that starts at that particular time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm an hour late.
Sorry about that.
So
Anyway, so several people are about ready to depart. So I thought we might keep it as a nice, pointed, concise session today, if that's okay with people. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
I hope my audio works now better.
It does. It's perfect now, Heiner.
Okay. I think your approach to group counseling, to at least to 4 people now, is very important, and to come to commons, to common grids. We had it in religious groups that there was a preacher and you got your orders and you follow the commandments. I think here we are coming into a very interesting realm that we do it together, maybe even one day collectively, at least in groups. And I've been working very much around also intentional communities. What are our commons? What our good sides, what our bad sides are. And I think to revel it around the human dimensions, I think it's very, very important, because the technical dimensions, we have seen too much already, not only in Silicon Valley. So I feel this human dimensions should be really be connected, and that is actually what I'm concerned about, and what I shared a couple of days in the GCC was the human thinking and the human collaboration, how it is done by cognitive scientists, that they really see that we have to have commons. And what I feel is a real challenge here, and I think we mentioned it at various times, We are not coming to the doing here. We cannot really have the experience out of my history, out of my motivation, how I got there. And I really know it even in intentional communities who stayed on for longer times or for generations, how hard it is because there are so many communication breaks. No, actually, I didn't want to put on and on and on. My question is, how do you link all you presented with the augmentation of the human intellect and Doug? Is it two different parts of you and they're fighting against each other? Where do they connect?
I do want to connect to that story, and I shudder, or some people might shudder for me, that my story is not complete. But yes, I have an arc to the story that hopefully will make sense if I'm given an opportunity to draw that arc. But yes, Doug was all about augmentation. It was not about replacement. I'm very much embracing that approach in our series of evolutionary steps here. So even though I have an AI background at Stanford, I'm all about augmentation, okay? And that's something that is hinted at here. But if we talk about human systems, which is where I've been spending most of the time on these Saturdays, I'm hoping over some next session or more that I get to talk about the technology systems and tool systems that I think also represent an embracing and extending of Doug's ideas. And I want to show that those connect and that those can really be very effective. And that's my contribution to these conversations. So I'm hoping to have that opportunity. Over.
And with augmentation, we mean the co-evolution of humans and tools, technologies, right?
They're related ideas. They're not the same idea, but they're related.
Kind of co-development. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Heiner, by the way, I know that you and I have barely begun speaking, and I'm looking forward to spending that week or so, in Berlin or whatever amount of time we can take, or wherever it is in London, perhaps, when Lucy goes to London, maybe we can do that. So I'm still hoping for an even deeper dive than this represents, so that we can actually really grok each other, okay? So we'll keep plugging on that one, but we'll see if that can happen.
I'm raising my hand because I can't find the button to do it.
Hi, Grace.
Hi. So I've missed, how many weeks have you had before this?
3. This is the 4th session that's involved myself in the hot seat.
Okay. So I'm really sorry if some of my questions are kind of, it's more kind of feedback or reflection to you. And I'm sorry if it's kind of stuff that people have asked you before. But it's just stuff that I'm feeling about your story personally and your ideas, and it's what I'm actually feeling empathically as well. And I wondered if I can just feed these questions to you, and then you can kind of paint a picture out of them. So I was just wondering, like, how long you've been cooking this idea, what drives it, and sometimes I find that I think of projects that are actually meeting a need in me, and I feel very strongly that this is definitely something that needs to happen, this collaboration and community. And for me, over the last few months, it's very much been about me communicating and collaborating with my higher power, and that drives my connection to humanity and nature. And I'm just wondering if there's actually something underneath this. There's a need in you, and there's something else. It's like I can feel something else that wants to come out, and that this project is meeting a need for you to bring out another seed of something that you really want to do.
I think you've sensed quite a bit there, given that this is your only exposure to me. But the 30-second version of this is, I met Doug in 1991, attended a 3-day seminar with him, and had lots of deep conversations with him in 1992. And in 2005, a fellow named John Markoff wrote a book about Doug and his work. The book is called What the Dormouse Said, and it's an alternative history to the evolution of the personal computer in Silicon Valley, personal computer. And it represents Doug as a seminal force in that, whereas other accounts have him completely almost dismissed. And so in 2005, at that event where John Markoff was speaking at Xerox Lab, Xerox Park, I wrote a letter to Doug almost immediately after. And I'll reproduce that letter here somewhere. I'll send a link to it. But basically it said, Doug, the reason your team fell apart and most of it went to Xerox wasn't about technology. It was about the human system side, which he himself held in very high prominence and priority. But there were a number of issues there that he and his team did not resolve. And that's why that particular research lab did not continue. Carl has a different version probably of this history as well. Carl knows it pretty well. And so I wrote a note to Doug saying, these are important questions. These are the ones we really need to focus on. There's zillions of people and zillions of dollars focusing on technology, but who's really working on this list of 100 things that we really want to evolve as human practices? Why are we in fact still working on a 145-year-old document or whatever called the Robert's Rules of Order as the standard practice in boardrooms and that sort of thing? So anyway, in 2008, I and a set of friends of mine put together a conference around Doug's work and vision called Program for the Future. We held others in 2010, 2013, 2015. This year, there is a 50th anniversary of Doug's work. And unfortunately, I'm probably not going to be central to that activity. But yes, that's a kind of a quick glimpse at a number of events that have brought me to where I am, Grace. But anyway, that's a much shorter version than the version I told over the last 3 weeks. But that's a quick summary in response to you. So thanks for asking that.
So would you say that that you're finding that you actually have a need for more people to collaborate with, and that actually you're looking yourself for more peers to work with, and that this idea is great on a global scale, but actually it's a need that you have right now? I find that sometimes I divert myself into going for big scale global ideas when actually it's just a need that I have. And that's what I'm feeling, Sam, is that actually you need a community around you, and that's what you've got actually, tonight and over the last few weeks, is that you've actually got some collaborators now, and that actually the COI is actually something that is a principle that you could create a platform for and to help other people. But I think I heard something earlier about, that's the thing I find with some of the way showers that I've been working with movement weavers, is that actually there's something else going on, and you think that the COI is the big idea, but actually you need a community around you to show a way, and there's something else that's bubbling. I can just feel that actually the COI is not the key thing. That's what you need around you right now for something else to birth through that. And it's a right now need as well. It feels like a right now need. You need collaborators and community, and so do I. Totally. I've got something bubbling and I don't know what it is, and I need that reflected back to me.
Yeah, I think there's a big discussion there. I think that there's an interesting possibility of community. I think there are some people in the community that I'm actually collaborating with quite closely already. I think their community as a community doesn't really have an identity. So that's another whole conversation right there. And whether or not it's a core idea, it's a very specific idea that I thought was discussable within a 1-hour framework. There are other ideas that I wanted to bring forth, which hopefully I get an opportunity to in future weeks. But this is one that I thought could fit into a 16-minute container. So that was one of the reasons I wanted to talk about it this way. And they're all,
No,
of course, intertwinkled.
No, I'm really grateful for you bringing this forward. It's very relevant for me too.
Well, thank you for your feedback as well and your interest. And I know that we've lost a couple of people who said that the 60-minute was a hard stop. This is actually kind of a nice chunk of discussion. Oh, Lucy's back.
I just went and brushed my teeth, but I do have to go.
It was fine. I didn't smell anything there, so don't worry.
No,
Also, Gertrude is trying to get here. I'm trying to get the link over to her on Facebook. Gertrude was trying to come in. I'm just letting you know.
Oh, Gertrude?
Gertrude is. Gertrude.
Yeah. So anyway, I was thinking that this COI idea was a nice sized, idea that could fit into this 60-minute container. I have a number of other topics, but I don't know how much longer we want to go. And some of these other topics could go for quite a while also. But I'm free to, exchange feedback on this set of ideas as long as people want to keep it going. Ms. Rist.
I'll hop off and but it would be great to carry on with this list. I've added a few more while we were talking.
I noticed. I was looking at it and there were items appearing as I saw it. Yeah, and by the way, I don't mind having a short session today also because I'm going to go to Seattle to see my oldest daughter, Amy, and take her brand new puppy, Eros, who's got already 28 pounds already at 3 months. So she's going to get a golden retriever this week. Anybody here like golden retrievers, by the way?
What's not to love about golden retrievers?
Come to Washington State. Come see I have 7 puppies remaining. They're all perfect. The veterinarians checked out. Everything's perfect about these. There were 2, by the way, that were not perfect, but they've already been adopted. So the remaining are all perfect. So come on down to Washington State and I'll give you a GCC discount on them. I still have expenses, by the way, so it's not going to be 0.
Yes. Send me a message about that because I got a friend who lives in Spokane who just lost his dog of 15 a year, so he might be very interested.
Carl, go to Facebook. There's a page called Camino Island Goldens, no spaces. Camino Island Goldens.
Okay.
And that's my puppies and my page.
Okay.
Okay. And yes, Spokane's only what, 3, 4, 5 hour drive. So yeah, they can come by.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll let him know if he wants to make that plunge again.
By the way, they're all AKC registrable.
Okay.
Okay.
So Alex and Gertrude, I think we're almost closing off here. So we we've gone through the community of impact vision that Sam has. So we talked about that quite a bit, which I see certainly some similarities to your thing with the circle coaching, Gertrude. Certainly some parallels there are very interesting. I also just want to say I really liked Grace's observation that the community of impact is something that you need now, and it's already beginning, and that at the same time it's part of something larger that's kind of bubbling up, which we can't really define. But I really felt that really hit home, felt really spot on for me to that observation.
I mean, one hint at that is, of course, an abstract notion of how we build networks is not a be-all and end-all. What we're all really, I think, trying to do here in GCC and elsewhere, I believe, is to help form that society that we all want to live in. You know, to live that that slogan or epithet, whatever you want to call it, we have to be the ones we've been waiting for. So I'm trying to figure out how that we can actually take shape, and that's part of the reason for those COI ideas. Hey, Josh.
I had a simple idea just because I'm watching people come in and out of the room and you've got to go and this and that. And it seems pretty simple just because Zoom and Google Hangout both make it possible, is just open up a room that's the GCC room. And since it's global, it's really hard. Like poor Glenn is, you know, late at night. I know it's late for Grace and so on and so forth. I think it's early for Alex maybe, and blah, blah, blah. So having one room where there's just on the GCC on Facebook, you can click on that and it's random and someone could be there, someone could not be there, but it's like the hangout space. What is your thoughts on that?
Let's try it. I'm not familiar with it, but let's try it.
So it's like a Zoom session that's always open.
Yeah, just the Zoom call instead of, so on Zoom, you have the option to put people in a lobby and they have to wait for the host, or you can just have it open. And then you can do the same thing in Google Hangout. I think that's actually what it was created for. So the room exists, but no host has to be in it. So you could just pop in, nobody's there, hang out for 15 minutes. And if someone pops in, and then usually it sort of just will create its own flow, because like this right now, people are popping in, people are popping out. So it could be empty at some points, but it's like, hey, who's in the hangout area? Let's just go see. And that could just spark more creativity and collaboration.
So when someone enters that area, is there a notification sent to the larger community that says, hey, join so-and-so?
I'm sure we could have signaling. You could just signal right on the Facebook group, hey, I'm in the room if anyone wants to join. I tried this out for myself yesterday, and my friend
saw you
from
did.
England
I was busy at that point.
Yeah, I think if it was just one of those things where I say, hey, Glenn, I'll see you in the room on Tuesday somewhere in the morning time. I'll check in and see if you're there when I'm free. And if Glenn's there and he hasn't been in for 2 hours and he's fresh and says, hey, yeah, let's collaborate, that could just go on.
It's a great idea.
Why not?
Is it possible to combine that with spontaneous recording for periods? For example, let's say somebody in a room and we're gonna talk about something, and we'd like to record, let's say the next hour or two, if that was possible as well. Idea, sort of open room.
So anyway, I was also curious, since Gertrude and Carl and Alex has joined us briefly, I was curious if either Josh or Grace or Glenn, you've probably already done it, but would like to sort of summarize in your own words what you thought you heard from me, to see if that might be a way to bring Alex and Gertrude up to speed and Carl up to speed on this conversation, even though we've been going now and we thought we'd be concluding soon, but at least I wanted to see if they could at least get some gist out of the conversation we had earlier. Would that be a reasonable way to bring them in?
Yeah, that sounds good.
That would be great. I had my girls back from their vacation and picked them up, and so I'm sorry I was late. So I would be happy to.
Yeah, I can begin to just take a brief summary. As I've heard it, Sam's described the division of a community of impact, which is people who connect around a wish to do good and be good personally in their life as they understand it, and then to have a few friends that one has in this community that you're accountable to, where you have conversations, where you mention plans you want to carry out, as well as what you've done previously. And this is the part which I find similar to what you once mentioned, Gerard, about circle coaching, and then also a larger community with sharing between different people in yet larger networks, and then active collaboration on the basis of that. So he also mentioned this short poster with about 4 bullet points, which could be printed out at some point, and if someone says, yes, I want to do that, and actually begins doing it, then they are, per definition, a member of the community of impact, according to this notion. So yeah, that and this was something Sam also mentioned as sort of the end game, or the core thing that he wants to realize. So that's how I would sum it up.
What I was thinking he's talking about is that community of impact it needs a structure, and it needs a grid, a layout. I mean, if you were designing a community from an executive's point of view, you'd want a way for it to function from the ground up. This is the kind of commons community. We're talking about a community of impact that involves everyone, all the artists, all the people who don't want to be involved, because inclusion means including the sick and the injured and the mentally ill, who are invalids and war veterans that are suffering from depression and all that sort of thing. They need to be included too. If they want to come on, log in and say something, they're all welcome to do so. And a method of segregating the community once it grows, because it'll grow to a size, become chaotic. So it needs to be regionalised, like the United Nations will regionalise its various districts. Big, huge organisations, they have to do that to keep the organisation organised and in control. It'll lose control and become chaotic and disorganised and powerless. So keeping a tab on the structure, the regionalisation around the world, global structure, that's the thing that'll help keep it organised. And those people are servants. I guess the people with experience in the field of networking and technology, like Sam and Doug and Gertrude and Anne. Anne works for the London School of Economics. If she doesn't know how a community organisation or a charity should be structured financially. I was thinking financially there could be 3 levels of manner of income. You know, in the old traditional format, factory industrialisation thing, there was money, just money. $1, $2, $5, $10, $100, $1 million, $1 billion. That was it. One currency, one form of money counting. If you got 3 different forms of manner, one of them could be for the products you produce. If you produce products, if you're an artist and you make things, or a craftsman and you make objects and sell them as products, there's one kind of manner called a green and blue and red. The blue one would be for artists who produce works of art, compose stuff, or paintings. And the third one could be for people who provide services, product services and community. So that's just an idea. I think I saw somebody with their hand up.
Yeah, Josh.
Thank you, Alex. And thank you for moderating, Glenn. So what I got out of what Sam was saying, and I appreciate, I've listened to what you're saying, Alex, about structure and ways of community impact and ways of coming together and collaborating as a community. The one thing that I found that's really interesting about what Sam was talking about with his 4, I guess, what's the model called, Sam? Maybe you can say it again, just so I'm speaking properly, the name that you name that document, the Community of Impact document.
I'm just calling it the Community of Impact Practices, principles and practices.
Principles and, okay, that's the word I needed. Thank you. Principles and practices. So principles and practices is very different than structure. And I think that's what's really almost confusing, because what I'm hearing Sam say is you are only accountable to you to do your own good. And if you're lucky enough to have 2 other people that know you well enough to know your own alignment with yourself, they can hold you to not bullshit yourself and actually do the good that you want to do. But there's an assumption I heard in that, Sam, is that you're assuming that people want to do good. And thus you want to align yourself with those people that want to do good, which is beautiful. Go ahead, Sam. Did you want to?
Keep in mind, I don't expect everyone, not 7 or 8 billion people. I'm only looking for those people who do want to be that explicit about doing good.
Correct.
I'm not assuming
Correct.
that everybody's like that.
Yeah, and I believe you. And that's what I'm saying is when you're creating a structure, you have to create a structure for everyone. Whereas the structure you're creating is only for those that have the ideology, principles, and practice of wanting to do good for themselves first. Because no one can hold you to it if you don't want to do it. Thus, you need a structure to create something that you don't want to do. Whereas this is actual anarchy in saying it's literal, there is no structure. And when I say anarchy, I don't mean that in a bad way because it has negative connotations. But anarchy in your own good, I think Sam was clear in what he was saying, is it could be to make $1 million. It could be to help wildlife, preserve wildlife. It could be any direction at anything in the spectrum, as long as that is a good for you and your own soul. So what I heard you say, Sam, to sum it up in a ideology, is if it's good for your soul, do that. And then I'll just go one step further. That's a famous quote. What I'm hearing you say, Sam, is if it's good for your soul, do that, and do that in community to make an impact and resonate and intertwine with others that are doing good for their soul. So thank you. I just wanted to clarify.
If you don't have any rules or you don't have any instructions for member participation behaviour, that can become destructive or disruptive. So basic common sense dictates that you need something in there, maybe what Sam was talking about, the principles, or something else he mentioned too, principles and the project participation agreement, because mana can be dished out for people just being here and providing their time in conversations. And then you can log the time each member's been online, and 100 hours can equal one coin or one token of magna. What do you call it when you earn stuff in a game? When you're running around in a game with a hammer chopping things and scoring points, and your heart's getting bigger, getting redder and growing larger, it's mana. You're increasing the mana for taking part in activities, supporting other artists and supporting other members of the commune. Your mana is growing, and your mana grows because of the activity, the things you're clicking on, and the algorithm is counting all your activity and your interactions with other members. If somebody's given you the 4 stars, your mana might grow up. If you're only getting 1 star each time you have an interaction, your mana might stay the same or even reduce.
Alex, may I ask the word mana? What does that mean?
It's a reward for doing something. It's a reward for achieving something. It's like getting paid for something. It's like in the old system, it was money. In the new system, it's just an abstract thing that means you're a person of value. You're being treated as valuable because your mana's increasing. So you must have been doing something right with the community. You must have been living from your heart, not your greedy mind. Manna from heaven.
Just one remark to that with the structure. If there's a structure that we keep ourselves accountable in small teams for doing good, making that explicit, what is good for me. So then that's the core structure is the accountability procedure. And then from that core structure comes the more specific structures, which is then formed by each person in that process. So that's sort of the additional structure, I guess, that will will follow. But of course, that's the structure that each person defines for themselves. So yeah, that was one observation concerning structure. It seems to be that it's just very simple basic structure of just having these continuous reviews, the peer perspectives, and then the more specific personalized structure just arising from that, which of course is changeable.
So I'm curious, you know, some of you have heard this more than once. I'm wondering, is it simple? Is it understandable? Is it something that makes sense? Are there key pieces missing from it? Does it feel too dry? Does it feel like it would actually help in any way? I'm curious for those kinds of questions.
At the moment, for me, it's thank you for the overview, but I'm getting lost in the details what you're talking about. So I couldn't I couldn't refer to anything to be more specific and say what I think about it. So yeah, thank you for just bringing me in the loop, but the details are far too detailed to get the bigger picture.
Josh, I think you had your hand up, Josh.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like, you know, I've gone over it for the last few months since you first introduced it. I think that was about 3 months ago or so. And, you know, had a lot of conversations with other people about the topic of the principles. And it's either too short, meaning it needs to be really defined. It's not clear enough because of some of the key points in those words. I could cite them if I open it up, but you'll see when it says do good, but then it says a few other things that, like, it just said do good clear. In other words, shorten it down, cut it completely off into just those 4 bullet points, period, and let that be defined. Or it needs to be expanded so much that it's all defined. But what I was going to say, if you really want to get super simple, is instead of having 4, just have 1 saying, let's play the game of good, and just keep it at that. Because there is no rules. It's a game. Like, come and play with me. I'm doing some good stuff. And if you think it's good, awesome. If you don't, cool, that's fine. But come and play. Come and play what your good is. And I'm going to ask you, that's what I think this game is here at the GCC. We're just asking people, what are you trying to do? What are you thinking about? How can I support you? Like, we're playing a game. It's a game with no rules.
Game over.
I was thinking we're asking people to be on the team, because when you have a team, it's a game, and you've got to play the game. But there's no opposition. The other people that are not on the team are only people who haven't been invited, or they haven't entered the team yet. They're not the opposition. They're not the other team, the other half of the team. We're not playing against them. We're playing for the team. And it's like a co-op. If you're a community of impact. And by the way, I haven't read that document Sam's talking about. It's talking about some document of principles and concepts. Is it on the chat? Is the link on the chat?
Yes, it's the communityofimpact.info link.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And by the way, Josh, I had it's an interesting question you bring up. And to me, it is not just about playing around good, because to me, that feels like not enough structure, and it doesn't filter out yet enough for me the kinds of people I really want to connect with. So the people that want to play around good, I get that. That's another good definition of a community. But I want people who are actually doing a little bit more than that. So I'm asking more of people. So I did want to respond to you on that point.
Yeah, and just to clarify, and play around your good, meaning if you're clearly defining your own, and you're clear what your thing is and someone wants to come and play with that, then that's great. And they don't have to define their own good, and they don't have to have two people play accountable. They can just come play with you. But the more people that are inspired, and I think the key word that's missing in your document is inspire. Inspire resonance and more global impact. Inspire that through the game that you're playing yourself. And I think, like, I had a company called Sacred Geometry Shop, and our mission statement was a simple mission statement. We exist to inspire people through sacred geometry, period. So we're not trying to do something and teach something. We're just inspiring. This inspires us. So I think, you know, having a principle and a practice, like Alex is saying, it's really clear. What team is that? If you held your hand up and said, do you want to be on Team Sam's Good? I would say, yes, let's do it. I'm on your team. Put me on your team. If Alex said, do you want to be on Team Alex? Let's impact the world. And I've gotten to know Alex. I'd say, yes, let's do it. So I'm just saying, defining the good, you did put the document defining your good, but is it fun to play with you? Like, you know what I mean? Like, is it fun to be on that team? I think that's really what it comes down to.
I have a little comment too on that with fun. It seems to be a quote that I heard, and it's, I think it's a great quote that seems fitting in this context. Work is more fun than fun. That's a quote. Work is more fun than fun. And it occurred to me that with real work, like in real conscious work, where you really work on the most interesting that you can see, I believe that is true. That is the most fun that you can have. And that's also what this seems to be about. If you really want to figure out what does it mean for me to be good, and how can I hold myself accountable to actually practice that, which is the other key point here.
So I'm curious, how many of you actually have verbalized or explicated for yourselves what being good means? Gertrude.
Yes, in different way, and it changes over time. But for me, someday, some years ago, through a workshop, I really got what my mission is, to be source of appreciation for people and organizations worldwide. So it's like, it fits or it doesn't. But how that comes to life is different over time. It evolves, it changes over time. But really going back to that basis and always coming from there and cleaning source. It's really like there is a well and I need to clean it once in a while to have clear water coming out. Or yeah, so that's so it's not specific what I have to do, but in which way I want to be in the world, and that I want to, that this is where I'm coming from to have that impact in the world. That people come from appreciation, that business is based on appreciation. So, and I don't know if you know Aim to Flourish, the project. Does anybody know? This is Appreciative Inquiry. This is David Cooperrider, who created Appreciative Inquiry, and some others, some professors, they started to to do interviews with business leaders that are doing good and doing well. So they said they have to make enough money to live from it, so be in the market for 3 years, and they have to have something doing good somewhere. And in this platform, they bring all those interviews together. So you see a lot of exactly doing good in the world by simultaneously doing well. So they are called business. Oh, I don't get it together. So I put the above mana. I put the link aim, and then the number 2flourish.com. And I wanted to say there are different ways of doing it, and we started in January. We said we want to work in triangles. So what Josh suggested, it's really working, that not only 1 or 2 people, but 3 come together and work on a project. So this came out of our creation process, and when I see at your vase over your top, this is like many different triangles. Yeah, so and I put in that people need to be invited, encouraged, and inspired. That's Gerald Hüther. He is a brain researcher, and he's talking about children, how they learn. It's that they have that the brain functions best when people are inspired, feel invited and encouraged. I forgot. Yeah, and the ring coaching, what we are doing, we have a membership. So people pay a monthly fee, which is 40 euros plus VAT. And so the coaching itself, it doesn't cost anything. So you give 1 hour of coaching into the field and get 1 hour of coaching out. And the 40 or 46 or 47, 60, something like, this is for the website and for the basic coaching training. So we do a training for appreciative coaching, 8 times 2 hours, and some other input into the community. But the coaching itself is free. So it's just to organize it and to give basic training. And this works pretty good. So people have this, they are members of the same team, and they look for their own coach. But when they switch, so we encourage them to switch latest after a year, so it doesn't become sticky. But you don't have to look for another somewhere, but it's in that big pool. So people can be there for many years, and we say everybody deserves a coach, but not everybody can afford one. And this way, it's easy. So that's one possibility through membership. And we are creating now, so I'm translating the book, as you know. And for the German version, we are now creating something like a community to go beyond the book, what we already have. So with more stories and so people, we're just thinking about a model. How can people contribute and get something out of it? And we have some money to work with at the beginning. So there's a model like putting someone like crowdfunding at the beginning and then a repay over what gets sold. So I don't know yet, but there are different models that one is working already and the other one is in the making.
Okay, cool. Anyway, it seems like there's a number of other things that this could be associated with or remind you of or actually resemble. I'm curious what further reflection on that really represents, because what I've been trying to do is get at the core and the simplest and the most crucial elements of it. Josh, I'm going to look at your feedback of whether those second layer of bullet points could be removed to make it even more simple. I actually like that. I'm just hoping that it doesn't get so abstract that it then becomes less meaningful. But I'll think about that quite a bit. So anyway, thanks to everybody for listening and for recapping and for letting this sort of jar some conversation. I really appreciate that.
We have created a sentence. I just want to, then I'm finished. We created a sentence. One of our perspectives is, by everybody freely and gladly contributing to the whole, everything gets done.
And I was just going to offer, I was just going to offer real quick, and then you can speak, Alex. I was just going to say, if you want to take that document and put it in an HTML format where it's a tab and you click on the tab and then things drop down and then you click and you can go as deep you want, then you can have the best of both worlds where it's super simple, but people can go as deep as they want. I'm happy to help you create something like that.
Yeah.
Just reach out to me.
Dynamically, spreading out.
Sounds like the augment system, right?
Yeah. When I was designing
outline, yes, Carl.
when I was designing the three-member triad segments for Save Nature Free back in the early 2000s, a lot of web entrepreneurs jumped on to me back and said that's a pyramid scheme, a Ponzi scheme. You can't do that. And I had to point out to them that we'd discussed this with our lawyers already, and they said the main principles outlining a Ponzi scheme is an admission fee and no limit. And this is why they were illegal, because they brought in a lot of money for a few people and they collapsed. They collapsed in a very short amount of time. So I pointed out to him that those two principles, the fee and the expiry date, are both non-present. They don't exist in this scheme that I'm doing. So you can't call it a Ponzi scheme. And they had to go away. They had to stop responding to my forum post because they were wrong. They were simply wrong. They were trying to damage my efforts with slander. And I said, look, you can't go calling something that's good something bad when it's not. If you're standing on the high moral ground, you're a harder target to hit.
Yeah, and I guess every time something new is created, it's always automatic testing.
The difficult thing to explain to people was that if you want to add two people to it, a segment of a three-person triad, it's not going to be easy, because unless you treat it like a venture, a business venture or a marketing exercise, you'll probably find it difficult. And if you treat it just like a club, you're inviting friends to join a club, you might have more success. But it won't happen without engaging. And I learned that too. You have to engage with people, become friendly, and discuss some topics and some conversations. Once you've engaged with a person and you are discussing something, then you can bring the subject up. Say, I've got a segment going with only two people. We need a third member. would you be interested in doing the same? Because those two members of your segment are trained by you, because you're the captain of the team, you're the captain of the boat of the segment. You've got to train those two people to do the same. Save the world. All you've got to do is add two people to your segment. And that segment turns into a triangle, turns into a hexagon. As the segments link up, the hexagon joins up with another one, and you end up with a global fabric. Because every segment is joined. You haven't got just two spokes going out from you, you've got six. Even though you've only added, you can start with one person in your segment, you add one friend, and you explain the rules to that friend, they go and do the same, and bingo, you've got three in the segment. Now, all three people are doing the same thing. So two people, like Gertrude said, two people is the maximum you need to have, and you've got your segment.
But these triangles, or triads, they could change. It doesn't mean that you're fixed and only have to stick to those people. It depends on what you're creating. Maybe
yeah,
I would do something with Sam and Josh, and the next time I would do it with Carl and Alex.
Yeah,
so
but these have to be local. The members of my work segment have to be local people that live in the same area, because the organisation won't be able to have any political impact unless the local member who's running for power to approve the pipeline, if he's looking at the local area and he doesn't see a crowd complaining, you don't get noticed. Your voice is not there. But if your two members are in a local people, their segment is also local people. This thing's growing like a bacteria on an orange.
Yeah,
it started at one point. It's starting to grow into.
Can grow.
It's getting bigger.
Yeah,
it's getting bigger, and yeah, you can see it. You can see it because it's getting bigger. So it starts off as one little spot, but when it happens on the whole orange at once, the whole orange can become green overnight. Organic. I'm talking about organic growth. It stays in the same local area, not a global thing. The global thing happens later.
Yeah.
If you can understand that a baby has to grow before it's born, right? Yeah. So the cell divides, the single cell divides into two splits, and you've got two, then you've got 4. 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. So if I train two people in my segment to do the same, we've got organic growth happening, a very powerful business model.
Yeah, that's the model. I just want to say that Sam has to step off now, so maybe this is a good time for us to close. But thanks a lot, Sam. This was super interesting, and I'm sure we have several more sessions to go deeper into all of this. I sure hope so. So maybe we'll just call it a day here if no one else has anything.
Yes, I do. I want to go back to Josh's suggestion of holding a line open. How does that work, and who could do that? And yeah, I think that's a good idea. So people could come in and out, or have an appointment with each other, or so. Who could provide that?
I was going to say I can provide a Google Hangout. I can't provide a Zoom at the moment, but I can look into seeing if a company can pay for the room to be open, because I can't give my personal ID meeting because I meet with clients on that sometimes. But I'll go ahead and create a Google Hangout. So far we have the WordPress. It turns out that it was on our Facebook all along. I think Aaron created it a while back. So we have a global challenges collaboration.wordpress.com. So that's a place to play. And then also on top of that, Glenn, myself, and a few other people, and the gentleman name is Lorenz, created software called sutra.co, where you can create places to play. So I put that in the chat. I created play.sutra.co and gcc.sutra.co. So that's another place to play. But I'll go ahead, Gertrude, and look into a Google Hangout link, which I will. I'm not an admin, so I can't pin it to the top, but I'll post it on the Facebook. I'll go ahead and create that.
Yeah, great.
Another place.
And another thing, I didn't know how to get in because there was no pinned the meeting things. I didn't know where to find it. So I only had them on the right side. So this was gone. So maybe could be pinned up again.
There's button announcements on the Facebook page. It took me a while to figure that out. It's a little announcements. And I was I couldn't copy and paste to send it to you. I was having trouble while I was talking on the Zoom. So, but there's a little button on the top of the Facebook group that says, or on the left side says announcements. And then there's an addendum for yesterday.
Okay.
It was at a different place. So that's the spot.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you.
On the left, discussion and announcements. So if you push announcements, you find that thing. So, and also, by the way, the GCC, we also have a messenger thread just called GCC messages, and that's also a place we can just sort of play and just share these kind of ongoing small inputs. So, Carl, did you have anything you want to say before we wrap up?
No, I'm fine. It's. I just wanted to get the point in about the organic growth of segments happens in a regional. It spreads out from a central point, spreading out, radiating out from a central person. And that's why a segment team member is an entrepreneur, a person who has 2 members in their team. They have to train them well. They don't have to train them well, but it's a good idea to train them well if they want their segment to grow, if they want the global collaboration to grow. The GCC can grow exponentially if we think about that and get our act together, I think. And that'll be a community of impact.
So we'll just naturally grow somehow from we actually
Everybody.
This word of,
when you've got talented peers focused on solutions, good things can happen pretty quickly.
Absolutely. Yeah. Carl, did you have anything?
Yeah, I posted a link. There's a guy, Derek Sievers. He has a TED Talk too, but he has this pretty funny little video about leadership lessons from Dancing Guy. But I take from it that it's 3 people, and he talks about the importance of the first follower and stuff. But it's actually the first follower's most important thing is that enables there to be a second follower, and it is about three people, and then it's about purpose. So if you can find 3 people who have a resonating shared purpose, and then you're each other's first and second mutual co-followers or whatever, 3 people can change the world.
Yeah, that idea just seems to come back in many forms, and it's what Alex talks about as well. So yeah, this was great. So I guess we'll take that evening for now. So it's I guess it's early in Australia, but here it's about midnight now. So, but thank you, and next Saturday we'll continue going deeper into Sam's work, and in the meanwhile we can keep playing on Sutra and WordPress or GCC messengers, wherever. So good night to everybody.
Good night.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone. Cheers. Thank you, Sam.